life is short. We will all eventually realize that time passes faster than we imagine. There are days when we are constantly bogged down by worries, letting our minds wander everywhere with every kind of thought, from the daily grind of making a living to trivial matters in relationships. The more we overthink, the more restless our minds become, and the more we torment ourselves. Often, before anything even happens, we conjure up all the worst-case scenarios and let fear consume us. Like a river in flood, its swift currents carrying all sorts of debris, our minds, too, become a chaotic flow, with no quiet space left to form a peaceful smile. Perhaps each of us has experienced long nights of insomnia, our minds ceaselessly revolving with the questions, what will tomorrow bring? Will I be strong enough to handle everything? And then we are exhausted, our bodies weary, our spirits worn out. The Buddha once taught that the root of suffering is an unrestful mind. When we chase endless, delusive thoughts, we will forever find ourselves feeling inadequate, dissatisfied, and sorrowful. But if we know how to pause, look within ourselves, and recognize the value of the present moment, we will see that life is not inherently so heavy. When the mind rests more and the heart knows contentment, life immediately becomes lighter. Happiness is not in a distant place, but right in every peaceful breath, in a warm bowl of rice, in the gentle laughter of loved ones nearby, like a lotus blooming in a serene pond. Peace is always within us, just waiting for us to return and recognize it. And from that moment, we learn to cherish each moment, living more slowly, more gently, no longer letting our minds wander aimlessly. Therefore, as we begin this journey, let us pause together for a moment, breathe deeply and gently, to remember that life is truly short. If today we don't learn to let go of thoughts, if we don't learn to be content, how much time will be left tomorrow to live joyfully? This is also the door opening to the next journey, where we will find true clarity and healing in our souls. Have you ever asked yourself how much time in life we have truly lived, and how much time we have merely spent worrying about things that haven't happened yet? In the quiet late nights, when the city has fallen asleep, with only the sound of wind whispering through the window frame and a few distant noises from the alley, how many people are still tossing and turning with anxieties? There is no end. Some worry about money, fearing they won't have enough to support their children's education in the future. Some worry about work, wondering what their boss will say tomorrow, or how colleagues will judge them. Others worry about their health, creating dozens of illness scenarios in their minds, even though their bodies are currently healthy. And so, these wandering thoughts draw us into a dark labyrinth, where we are both the captive and the one who builds the invisible walls. The Buddha once taught that the mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-wrought. If one speaks or acts with an impure mind, suffering follows them, just as the wheel follows the hoof of the ox. When the mind allows worry to drag it along, each thought is like a seed of restlessness sown into the field of the mind. Once many are sown, restlessness will arise, causing life to lose its lightness. Overthinking doesn't help us solve problems. On the contrary, it only depletes our health and adds more suffering to our souls. Imagine a person walking on a peaceful country road with golden ripe rice fields on either side, the wind making each grain of rice gently touch another, like a whisper. That person could leisurely enjoy such beauty. But because their mind is busy thinking about unpaid debts and unfinished tasks for tomorrow, they no longer see the marvelous rural landscape. In the end, even though the scenery is full of peace, their heart remains heavy with sorrow. The truth is, worry has never made a tomorrow better. It only makes today lose its light. The Sutra of Responsive Buddhist Teachings reminds us there is an ancient story, often called the story of the man carrying salt water. Once upon a time, there was a man who was always sad, his heart filled with worries. He sought out a Zen master for advice. He lamented, "Master, my mind is always suffering. No matter what I do or where I go, worry clings to me relentlessly." The Zen master didn't answer immediately. He took a handful of salt, put it into a small cup of water, and told the man to drink it. As soon as it touched his lips, the man grimaced. "It's too bitter, unbearably salty." After that, the Zen master took him to a wide river. He then put the same handful of salt into the river. The flowing water carried it away without any change. The Zen master said, "Your worries are like that handful of salt. If your mind is narrow like this cup, even a little salt will make your life bitter. But if you broaden your heart like the river, that worry will mean nothing anymore. The salt is still there, but the river remains clear." The man listened, then quietly bowed his head. From then on, he learned to let go, to think less, and to open his heart so he would no longer be submerged by his own worries. How are we any different from that man with the salt? When the mind is too narrow, worries immediately take over all the space. Even a small sadness turns into an endless burden. But when we learn to open our hearts and live with generosity and compassion, that anxiety is no longer a heavy burden, but merely a little salt dissolving into a large river. If people keep calculating, comparing, and worrying, we cannot live today, nor can we find peace tomorrow. That's why there's a saying, "One day lived fully is worth 1,000 times more than worrying about the future." There was a farmer in the countryside who toiled in the fields all day long. On sunny days, he worried that rain tomorrow would drown his rice. On rainy days, he worried that intense sun tomorrow would scorch his rice. He was always agitated, never sitting still. One day a friend said to him, "Brother, whether it's sunny or rainy is not for you to decide. Your worrying only drains your mind, while the fields remain the same. Instead of worrying, just do your part well each day." The farmer listened, pondered, and then nodded. From then on, he only focused on what he could do, fertilizing, weeding, and tending to the rice. As for the sun and rain, he left them to the heavens. And gradually, his harvest improved. And more importantly, he felt lighter in his heart, no longer as heavy as before. Many of us live like that farmer of old. We worry about our children's future, about law, and even about things that may never happen. But ask yourself, do those worries help the present in any way? Or are they just like the wind blowing through the fields, stirring up blinding dust that obscures our path? Overthinking is like building storms in your own heart, and then struggling to brace against those very storms. Life is inherently impermanent. No one can grasp anything firmly. This morning, the sun was brilliant, but by afternoon, it was raining cats and dogs. A loved one sitting beside you today might be thousands of miles away tomorrow. So, is it not a waste to spend our entire lives thinking about things that may not even happen? Peaceful happiness is only present in the current moment. If today we allow worry to overshadow us, then even if tomorrow comes, we will still be empty-handed in our souls. The miracle is that when we learn to stop worrying, life will automatically brighten, like the sky after a rainstorm. When the clouds dissipate, the sunlight appears, and a rainbow is born from it. The human mind is also like this. When unnecessary thoughts are discarded, joy immediately blossoms, and peace of mind becomes present. So instead of overthinking, learn to live deeply in every moment. Sit down, sip a hot cup of tea, and listen to the gentle aroma spreading. Watch the leaves gently tremble in the morning sun. Listen to the birds chirping to each other. That is true life. As for worry, it is merely fleeting clouds, not worth exchanging our entire lives for. If one day you feel your heart is too heavy, remember the story of the man carrying salt. Ask yourself, is my mind a small cup or a wide river? If you taste bitterness, perhaps it's because your heart is too narrow. Open it wide. Let go. Let that worry dissolve into love, into compassion, into a gentle outlook on life. When we think less, we begin to have space to love, to understand, and to live fully in the present. That is the wisdom the Buddha taught. Living mindfully, letting go of delusive thoughts, and abiding in each moment. Life will be joyful, and the mind will be free when we understand that nothing is worth losing our inner peace over. A day lived in mindfulness, a day not buried by worries, is a truly meaningful day. And from then on, we will see what's the point of overthinking when happiness is already here, in every breath and every simple smile, even in a busy life. Today, perhaps each of us has experienced moments of extreme exhaustion. We rush through work, worry about our families, strive to take care of everyone around us, only to realize at times that we are physically and mentally depleted. There are mornings when we wake up feeling as heavy as if carrying stones, our minds weary as if wrung dry. Yet we still push ourselves, rushing forward like a machine that doesn't allow itself to stop. Many people believe that resting is laziness, a waste of time. But in reality, rest is an essential part of life. Just as a field after harvest needs time for the soil to regenerate. Like a stream that needs to settle for its water to become clearer, the human body and mind also need to breathe, to rest, to return to stillness. The Buddha once taught that if the body is tired, the mind is also difficult to settle. When we don't know how to stop, we are losing ourselves in the endless cycle of life. All worries grow from that. In fact, when tired, rest. When troubled, let go. That is not fleeing, but knowing how to love and care for oneself. When the body and mind are nourished in stillness, we can rise stronger, more steadfast against the storms of life. Try to imagine a sunset evening when the last rays of light still cling to the treetops and birds call to each other as they return to their nests. If you sit under a tree, listen to the wind whispering through the leaves, take a deep breath, and let your mind relax. You will feel a peace seep throughout your chest. No more worries, no more tension, just clear stillness. That is the best healing medicine life has to offer. But so often, we miss it because we are constantly chasing things out there. There is a story about a woodcutter. Every day, he went into the forest to chop wood from morning till night. As time passed, his axe became increasingly dull. He chopped and chopped, but got very little done. He was tired and sweaty, but still exerted himself to chop. Because in his mind, he believed he had to work very hard to make a living. One day, a passerby saw this and said, "Why don't you take a break and sharpen your axe? It would be easier to chop afterwards." The woodcutter sighed. "I'm too busy. How can I find time to sharpen it?" Yet precisely because he refused to stop, his strength was increasingly depleted, and his work was still not very effective. In life, we are often like that woodcutter. We think that if we just try it a little harder, do a little more, everything will be fine. But this very stubbornness wears us down more and more. If we know how to stop, rest, and sharpen the axe of our souls, we will go further, more sustainably. Resting is not laziness, but a way for the body and mind to recover, for the heart to beat in a peaceful rhythm, for the eyes to see life with a gentler light. In Buddhist teachings, there is a simple yet profound practice, abiding in the breath. When the mind is tired, stop, sit down, breathe slowly, breathe deeply, aware of each incoming and outgoing breath. Just doing that, we give ourselves a quiet space, like a river settling its sediment to become crystal clear. It is in these moments of stillness that we find healing energy, a connection with ourselves, and a refuge in the heart of compassion. Wisdom is inherently present within. A worker once confided that every day after work, she felt exhausted, her mind filled only with frustration and worries. Following advice, she tried spending 15 minutes each evening sitting still, breathing evenly, doing nothing. At first, she felt uneasy because her mind kept wanting to think. But gradually, she felt a spreading calm. Her sleep became more peaceful, and her mood less stressed. From then on, she understood that resting is a wise way to work with one's own life. In fact, knowing how to rest is knowing how to value oneself. It is also an expression of wisdom. We cannot keep going without stopping, just as a lamp cannot burn forever without more oil. The human mind is similar. If it constantly chases worries, sooner or later it will be exhausted. But when we know how to return to stillness, we give ourselves a chance to revive, and also give our loved ones a better version of ourselves. In life, sometimes stopping is not giving up, but to continue more steadily. A person who knows how to rest and quiet their mind is also a person who lives mindfully. And in that mindfulness, we truly touch simple happiness, clearly seeing impermanence, clearly seeing that each present moment is the most precious gift that karma has bestowed. So if you are tired today, please give yourself a break. Sit under a tree. Let the wind soothe your eyes. Let your mind settle like a still lake. Remember that when tired, rest. When troubled, let go. Rest is not a luxury, but the first step on the journey of healing. From that healing, you will regain strength, regain faith, and find the path to continue in life with a free and peaceful soul. Perhaps deep down, everyone has wished that life would be perfect, that everything would happen as they desired. But as more years pass, we realize that life is never perfect. Along life's path, there will always be adversities. Some people rub us the wrong way. Some words cause us pain. No matter how much we try, there will still be failures, people gossiping behind our backs, and moments when we feel we are not good enough. This reality is not meant to make us despair, but to teach us to live truthfully with imperfection. The Buddha once taught that in this life, suffering is a truth, but it is precisely within that suffering that the seeds of wisdom are born. If we only want life to be smooth sailing, then when we encounter a little adversity, we will collapse. But if we accept that life inherently has bumps, then each fall is an opportunity to learn, to get up, to become stronger. Failure is never the end. It is just a comma for another path to begin. Challenges don't come to destroy us, but to teach us how to grow, to learn to let go of excessive expectations, and to be content with what we have. There is a very beautiful ancient story, often called the story of the cracked pot. In those days, a water carrier brought 2 pots from the well to his home every day. One pot was perfect, while the other had a small crack on its side. Each time he arrived home, the cracked pot only had half its water left. Feeling inadequate, the cracked pot was sad. It said to the water carrier, "I apologize for making you work hard without fulfilling my duty. I am truly useless." The water carrier smiled gently upon hearing this. "Didn't you know that because of your crack, flowers have bloomed all along the path we walk? Every day I sow seeds on the side of the road, and thanks to the water leaking from you, the flowers bloom, beautifying our path." Hearing this, the cracked pot was stunned, then burst into happiness. It understood that its crack, which seemed like a flaw, actually created a unique and irreplaceable beauty. Each of us is like that pot. Within us, everyone has cracks, imperfections. Some are not good at sweet talk. Some don't have the figure they dream of. Some don't excel in studies. Some carry old wounds in their hearts. But it is precisely these things that create each person's identity, their unique path. A field entirely of roses would not be as beautiful as a field with interspersed yellow chrysanthemums, pink lotuses, and green grass. A monochrome white painting would not have as much vitality as one blended with all ranges of colors. Life is also like this. If everyone were perfect, what would we still learn from each other? The Sutra of Responsive Buddhist Teachings reminds us. A friend once told me that he was a construction worker with poor health, so he was often slower than his colleagues. He always felt inadequate and insecure, but precisely because he worked slowly, he was more careful and often discovered small errors that others overlooked. Thanks to this, many projects avoided mishaps. After many years, he realized that his weakness was actually his strength, allowing him to thrive in his profession. Just like the cracked pot, these imperfections, if viewed with compassionate eyes, will be seen as gifts that life bestows. When we learn to embrace imperfections, our hearts feel lighter. We no longer waste time comparing ourselves to others, no longer saddened by unpleasant words from others. Because we know that everyone has flaws, everyone has cracks. But it is thanks to these cracks that each person becomes unique. It is imperfection itself that creates unique value, that creates the true beauty of life. In the Dhammapada, there is a verse, "Just as a lotus grows from muddy water, yet remains unblemished, so too does the wise one rise amidst life's imperfections without being stained." Life is inherently like mud, like a storm, like the flaws on a pot. But if we know how to live mindfully, to appreciate every crack, we will find flowers blooming right on that challenging path. Try looking back at yourself. Perhaps you have failed at work, been criticized by others, or done something that made you regretful. But do you realize that it is thanks to those experiences that today you are more mature, have a heart that knows how to empathize more with the suffering of others? If life were only favorable, people would never grow spiritually. Remember that a crack doesn't make a pot useless. It only makes it unique. When we know how to perceive that very difference, it can blossom into flowers, adorning life. Similarly, when we learn to face our own imperfections and those of life, we truly embark on a journey of inner growth. Life is not perfect, but within that incompleteness, there's still beauty, still love, still karmic connection for us to learn, to live, to love. One day, when you can smile at your own flaws, you will feel as light as a bird flying in the open sky. And then you will understand that peace does not come from perfection, but from accepting and loving imperfections. So please try to live like the roadside flowers that bloom from the water leaking from a cracked pot. Let this life, which inherently has many flaws, become a colorful painting. And from that, you will learn to let go of perfectionism, to live more calmly, appreciating every moment present in the embrace of wondrous karmic connections. Have you ever asked yourself why your life keeps encountering difficulties again and again? Have you ever felt tiny amidst life's many storms? Each of us has wished for a peaceful life, without turbulence, without suffering. But then, looking back, we realize that it was precisely those stormy days, those emotional wounds, that taught us how to stand firm, to love ourselves, and to love others more. Life is inherently a journey, and that journey cannot be entirely sunny. If there were only spring, flowers would not fully develop their colors and fragrance. If there were only bright days, we would never appreciate the light after darkness. The Buddha once taught, "Without mud, the lotus cannot bloom." It is in suffering that people find the path to liberation. These teachings are like a small lamp illuminating our understanding that suffering comes not to destroy, but to train, to teach us to mature. Try to look back at everyday life. A baby learning to walk falls dozens of times, crying loudly through tears. But it is those falls that help the baby's legs become steadier, so that later they can run and play freely. If a farmer sowing seeds doesn't experience scorching sun, heavy rain, and storms, those seeds will never sprout strongly. In every simple rhythm of life, there is a profound truth. Without hardship, there can be no growth. There is a story that the ancients often told, the story of the bamboo in the storm. One day, a great wind arose, and a storm knocked down large ancient trees, breaking branches and uprooting roots. Yet, after the storm, people were surprised to see the bamboo groves still standing tall. Someone asked, "Bamboo, why are you so small, with such slender stalks, yet you didn't break or fall under the storm's power?" The bamboo smiled and replied, "Because I know how to bend with the wind." That answer holds a profound lesson. In life, resisting isn't always strength. Sometimes, knowing when to bow, to be flexible, to be patient, is the greatest strength that helps us navigate storms. Look around, and you will see not a few people who have grown through adversity. The migrant worker, toiling daily in crowded streets, his shirt soaked with sweat, his hands calloused. But thanks to those arduous days, they learned resilience, learned to appreciate every meager wage, and understood that happiness lies not in luxury, but in family. The single mother, struggling to raise her child alone, enduring countless hardships, tears silently falling on her thin face. But it was from those sacrifices that she became strong like a mountain, protecting her children as they grew into adults. In Buddhism, there is a beautiful teaching. Like gold purified by fire, like a lotus from mud, like a jewel from stone. People truly shine only after they have gone through suffering. If life were only easy, we would forever remain tiny grains of sand, never becoming jewels. Adversity is like a blacksmith's fire, melting away weaknesses and forging character. But to grow in adversity, we need to change our perspective. Ordinary people, when facing difficulties, complain and deem their fate unfair. The wise person, however, will quietly ask, "What is this difficulty here to teach me?" When the mind changes, adversity also transforms. It is no longer an enemy, but becomes a teacher. It is no longer a burden, but a stepping stone that lifts us up. Have you ever sat and watched a river after heavy rain, its waters rushing, muddy, carrying branches and debris? But over time, the river becomes crystal clear again, reflecting the sky. Human life is similar. Initial sorrows, failures, and hurts make us falter. If we know how to let go, how to allow time and patience to cleanse us, our minds will become clear again, even deeper and broader than before. There is a small story from a village that I once witnessed. In the central region, every time a storm came, people often feared losing all their crops and flowers. That year, a big storm hit, and Uncle Two's entire banana garden was flattened. Uncle Two looked at his garden and shed tears. But strangely, just a few months later, from the broken banana stumps, numerous young shoots sprouted, greener and more vigorous than before. Uncle Two told everyone, "Even trees know how to stand up after a storm, let alone humans. Loss is not necessarily the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of a new life." Those heartfelt words touched many people's hearts. Indeed, within loss, there is always the seed of life. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha taught that conquering 1,000 armies is not as great as conquering oneself. And sometimes, adversity is an opportunity for us to conquer ourselves, to conquer weakness, fear, anger, and despair within our own souls. A person who knows how to view adversity as a lesson will no longer complain, but will quietly smile, because they understand that this is a path to growth. Imagine if your life were always smooth sailing, never encountering setbacks. Would you have enough strength to stand up when a real storm eventually hits? It is precisely because we have fallen and hurt that we know how to rise again. It is precisely because we have lost that we know how to cherish what we have. And it is precisely because we have been lonely that we know how to love and deeply empathize with the pain of others. Growing through adversity does not mean we must suffer forever, but that when suffering comes, we no longer fear, no longer resist in despair. We can smile and say, "I accept you, for you have come to teach me something." Like the bamboo bending in the wind, we learn to be flexible in the face of challenges, so that after the storm, we can stand tall and firm again. When our minds learn to be calm in the face of adversity, life will become lighter. We no longer compare, no longer complain, but simply continue on our path. Because we understand that everything will pass, storms will dissipate, the sky will clear, and dawn will still come. What remains within us is growth and gratitude for having endured suffering and forged a resilient soul. And it is only when we pass through difficult days that we truly feel the value of peace and joy. Just as after a long winter, we cherish the warm sunbeams even more. After a heavy rain, we appreciate the blue sky even more. Life is similar. Only after tasting bitterness do we truly value sweetness. Only after experiencing suffering do we understand that happiness is something ordinary and simple. So if you are going through a difficult period, please don't lose heart too quickly. Believe that adversity does not come to crush you, but to teach you how to stand firm. Remember the image of bamboo in a storm, to see that bending is not weakness, but wisdom. Let wounds become lessons, so that each day you walk more strongly and peacefully. Once we have learned to grow through adversity, our minds automatically overthink less, because we know nothing lasts forever. Difficulties are impermanent. Happiness is also impermanent. The most important thing is to live fully in each moment, to maintain contentment, to keep a gentle heart. And then life will naturally be joyful, like flowers blooming at dawn, like the gentle breeze rustling branches, like a serene river flowing to the sea. Perhaps in life, each of us has experienced moments of being misunderstood, being hurt by others' words or actions. Sometimes it's just a look, an unintentional remark, an action that seems trivial, yet it stirs our hearts and unsettles our minds. These wounds often don't stem from external events, but from a heart that hasn't learned compassion and listening. If only we could open our hearts a little more, listen a little more, perhaps so much suffering in life would not have become such a heavy burden. The ancients had a saying, "If you want to be loved, know how to cherish. If you want to be respected, know how to be humble." Compassion and listening are the art of nurturing both love and understanding, so that our minds worry less and our lives become more peaceful. When sitting under a tree on a windless afternoon, listening to the chirping of birds calling to each other, we can easily feel that nature is inherently compassionate. Trees never complain about heavy rain breaking branches, but remain green when the sunny season arrives. A river never distinguishes between clear or muddy water, but flows silently towards the sea. The wind doesn't choose between rich or poor homes, it just blows through. Compassion in life is similar. It is the ability to accept differences, opening one's heart to understand the pain, weaknesses, and clumsiness of others, instead of hastily judging or resisting. Listening is also a part of compassion, because when we are willing to sit still and truly listen to the other person's story, when we put ourselves in their shoes, we will see things we didn't understand before and reduce anger and blame. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a teaching that a person who knows how to listen will have an open mind, and a person who knows how to be compassionate will have a peaceful heart. That teaching is like a cool breeze blowing on sweltering days, reminding us that suffering often comes from an overblown ego, from clinging stubbornly to right or wrong, winning or losing. We often want others to understand us, but rarely bother to understand others. We often want to be respected, but rarely humble ourselves. We often hope for others' love, but rarely open our hearts to cherish. That's why in this competitive life, people's hearts easily grow tired, and their minds filled with worries. Compassion and listening are the keys that open a different path, lighter and gentler, bringing us closer to true happiness. There is a very simple story that makes people reflect for a long time. In a poor village near the mountains, there was a child who often came to the temple gate. The child was fatherless. Their mother worked far away, and they lived with their frail grandmother. They didn't have enough money to buy a new pair of shoes, only wore torn, worn-out shoes with ripped toes. Every time it rained, mud clung to their feet. One day, on their way home from school, they stopped by the temple gate, took off their torn shoes, placed them on the stone steps, and quietly walked into the temple courtyard to wash their feet. At that moment, an old monk was sweeping leaves. Seeing the scene, he said nothing, but quietly picked up the torn shoes and took them to his room. That night, the monk sat and sewed every stitch, every thread, and placed a new pair of socks he had saved inside the shoes. The next morning, when the child returned for their shoes and saw them mended, with warm socks inside, they suddenly burst into tears, tears streaming down their thin cheeks. But those were tears of gratitude and emotion. They couldn't speak, only knew to bow their head before the temple gate. That simple story makes us understand that compassion doesn't require grand words or ostentation, but only a heart that knows how to listen, empathize, and share. A mended pair of shoes, a new pair of socks, yet they could warm the heart of a poor child for a lifetime. Our lives are also like this. There are people who don't need flowery words or grand help. Just a little concern, a sympathetic look, a timely handshake can make them stand firm in adversity. Compassion sometimes isn't about accepting major faults, but about tolerating the trivialities and small shortcomings of our loved ones. A wife can learn to stay silent during her husband's unwarranted outbursts of anger, understanding that he carries the burden of making a living. A child can learn to listen to their elderly mother's repetitive complaints, understanding that it is her longing for her children and grandchildren. A friend can learn to smile at another friend's slowness, knowing that everyone has their own limitations. Listening is putting yourself in the other person's shoes to understand more, to love more, instead of reacting hastily. People often think that listening is just about understanding a story, but in reality, listening is about healing. When a person is listened to, they feel acknowledged, valued. Their pain is thus eased, their heart opened. Similarly, When we are compassionate towards others, not quickly blaming or trapping them in past mistakes, we are also opening a way out of resentment for ourselves. The Buddha once taught that hatred cannot cease hatred. Only love can cease hatred. Each time we listen, we sow seeds of love. Each time we are compassionate, we sow seeds of peace. A small seed, but it can grow into a shade tree, sheltering our lives and those around us. In the late afternoons, when the sun sets and the last rays of daylight stretch across golden, ripe rice fields, we see how simple yet peaceful life is. The heavy rice stalks bow their heads in the wind, like a lesson in humility. Compassion and listening are also like those rice stalks. The more grains they bear, the heavier and fuller they become, the more they bow their heads. The more spiritually mature a person becomes, the more they know how to humble themselves, how to listen in silence, how to open their hearts to forgive. A person who stubbornly clings to their ego, refusing to listen to anyone, is like an empty rice stalk, standing tall but hollow, never truly complete. A person who is compassionate is like a ripe rice field, both beautiful and nourishing to life. If we are willing to look deeply into life, we will see that everyone has their own suffering. The rich may suffer from work pressure. The poor suffer from the daily grind of making a living. The successful suffer from loneliness. Ordinary people suffer from unfulfilled dreams. No one is entirely happy, nor is anyone entirely suffering. Therefore, when we learn compassion, we will blame others less, be less angry, knowing that behind every action of theirs, there is a reason. When we learn to listen, we will find our hearts lighter. For within understanding, there is always hidden love. Listening is a form of compassion. Compassion is a form of wisdom. Combining both, we can transform our lives into a journey of peace and happiness. And then, as we sit still in our breath, slowly looking back at ourselves, we will see that compassion, first and foremost, must be extended to ourselves. We have often blamed ourselves, tormented ourselves for past mistakes. We have resented fate, been angry with ourselves for not being good enough, not skilled enough. But if we don't know how to be compassionate to ourselves, how can we be compassionate to others? If we don't listen to our own heart, how can we truly listen to others? Therefore, the art of compassion and listening is first and foremost a return to oneself, accepting one's own flaws, forgiving the past, opening one's heart to the present, and from there, nurturing compassion for all beings. Compassion is not weakness, it is strength. Listening is not inferiority, it is wisdom. A person who knows how to be compassionate and listen will think less, worry less, and live a happier life. Like the story of the torn shoes, just a small act, yet filled with boundless love, changed a child's heart. We can also do the same in daily life through our own compassion and listening. A gentle word instead of blame, a moment of silent listening. Instead of arguing, a little empathy instead of judgment, all are seeds of peace that we can sow today to harvest tranquility tomorrow. When we learn compassion and listening, we will see that life is inherently impermanent. Anger and blame will pass like clouds drifting across the sky. What remains is the warmth in our hearts, the joy of seeing others smile, the lightness when the mind is no longer troubled. A happy life doesn't come from how much wealth we possess, but from how much love we have in our hearts. Compassion to open the heart, listening for a clear mind, contentment to free from worries. And then we will realize that when the mind overthinks less, life will be peaceful and happy. In this life, perhaps nothing is more familiar than words. Every day, we open our eyes to greet the dawn with wishes. We greet each other with warm words. We express love with sweet words. We comfort each other with empathetic phrases. But those very words can also be an invisible knife, deeply stabbing someone's heart. People might forget a clumsy action, but it's hard to forget a harsh word. A wound on the skin can heal in a few days, but a wound left in the heart by words can sometimes last a lifetime. That's why our ancestors often advised to bite your tongue 7 times before speaking. Because words are inherently a double-edged sword. Used correctly, they heal. Used incorrectly, they wound. There are afternoons when a gentle breeze blows through the bamboo groves, and the rustling of bamboo leaves echoes like the whispers of heaven and earth. Nature teaches us that sound also carries energy. It can comfort, soothe, and also shake a person's heart. Ocean waves whisper as they caress the sandy shore, making us feel gentle. But when angry, they can sweep everything away. Human words are similar. When we speak with love, it is like a cool stream flowing into people's hearts. When we speak in anger, it is like a fierce fire burning down a relationship. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a teaching about loving speech, gentle and respectful words that bring peace to both the speaker and the listener. The Buddha once reminded that a wholesome word can change an entire destiny, sowing seeds of peace in people's hearts. But conversely, a malicious word can cause resentment, separation, and suffering. Therefore, in the practice of spiritual cultivation, words are not only a means of communication, but also a part of the precepts for nurturing compassion and wisdom. In daily life, we easily see the power of words. A child who hears encouraging words will grow up more confident and happy. But that same child, if they have to hear criticism and scolding every day, will carry feelings of inferiority and fear in their heart, making it difficult to rise. A wife who frequently receives loving words from her husband will feel warm, secure, and find it easier to share difficulties. But if she has to endure cold, uncaring words every day, the happiness in her home can easily shatter. A friend who receives listening and encouragement will feel valued, but if they only hear sarcastic and critical remarks, that friendship will sooner or later crack. We often don't notice that every word spoken carries energy, just like dropping a stone into a lake. The ripples spread far. Sometimes, just an unintentional word can make someone lose sleep for many nights. Sometimes, just a sincere compliment is enough to give someone the strength to overcome a storm. Therefore, the Buddha taught that when angry, be silent. Silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. Because in anger, words are like fire. The more you speak, the larger the fire burns, only causing more destruction. Silence is the cool water that helps extinguish the fire of resentment, so we don't harm ourselves or others. There is a famous everyday story called the goose feather pillow story. The story goes that a young man, in a fit of anger and jealousy, spoke ill of his friend everywhere. Later, when he calmed down, he felt regret and sought advice from a master. The master didn't scold him, but simply handed him a goose feather pillow and said, "Tear this pillow open, and let the feathers be carried away by the wind." The young man obeyed, took the pillow out to the yard, and tore it open, letting each light feather float across the alleys and neighborhoods. Afterwards, he returned and reported, "I have finished. Please forgive my mistake, master." The master looked at him, smiled, and said, "Now go and gather all the feathers you just released." The young man was stunned and said, "That's impossible. The wind has carried them everywhere." The master gently replied, "Just like the words you've spoken. They have flown away, woven their way into the ears and hearts of others. No matter how much you regret it, you cannot completely retrieve them. Therefore, be careful before you speak, for once words are released, no one can gather them back." That story is simple, yet profound. It reminds us that words are not birds that can be called back, but rather like seeds sown. If they are wholesome seeds, they will sprout flowers and fruit. If they are poisonous seeds, they will cause suffering. People can forgive wrong actions, but it's very difficult to forget hurtful words. Sometimes, a single word spoken in a fit of anger can shatter an entire relationship, can damage a person's reputation for life. And even with regret, they cannot be retrieved. In daily life, we often see sad stories caused solely by words. Some families are torn apart by bitter words spoken in anger. Some young people fall into despair just because they cannot bear criticism and ridicule. But there are also lives that change for the better, thanks to just a few encouraging words. A poor person can stand more firmly if someone believes in them and tells them, "You can do it." A sick person can fight more strongly if they hear words like, "We are here for you." Words are invisible, yet they are a tangible power in human life. Nature also teaches us this. In the morning, when birds sing on branches, that sound makes our hearts joyful. But when a storm brews in the sky, the resounding thunder and lightning make people tremble with fear. Words are similar. They can be a comforting bird song, or thunder and lightning that shatter a person's heart. We have the right to choose whether to use our words to bring peace and joy, or to sow more suffering. The Buddha taught that there are 4 things to uphold in speech: to speak truthfully, to speak lovingly, to speak beneficially, and to speak at the right time. If we adhere to these 4 things, our words will become a bridge that connects instead of a wall that separates. Speak truthfully to build trust. Speak lovingly to nurture affection. Speak beneficially to help others find peace and joy. And speak at the right time for words to have value. Sometimes a timely word is worth more than gold, but a word spoken at the wrong time can become a sharp knife. Perhaps in every family, every friendship, every relationship, what is most needed is not grand gestures, but gentle daily words. A small thank you makes loved ones feel appreciated. A timely apology can mend a rift. A word of encouragement is enough to empower someone who is tired. If each of us learns to cherish those beside us with loving speech, all anger will dissipate, and all worries will lighten. And when we listen to the words we speak, we will also learn to listen to ourselves, because every word uttered reflects our inner state. when the heart is full of resentment, words will be heavy. When the heart is full of love, words will be gentle. Therefore, the art of speech is also the art of the mind. If you want gentle words, first your mind must be peaceful. If you want words full of love, first your heart must be full of love. Finally, remember that human life is inherently short and impermanent. We don't know if tomorrow there will still be an opportunity to say a loving word, a thank you, or an apology to a loved one. Don't hesitate. Don't regret. Choose to speak gentle words today. Because once words are spoken, they fly away like birds, never to return. Let the words we utter be seeds of peace, so that one day, when we look back, we can smile serenely, knowing we have harmed no one with our language. Words are a double-edged sword, but if we wield them with mindfulness and compassion, they will no longer see weapons that cause injury, but become magic wands that bring joy. Learn to be sunt when angry. Learn to be gentle when loving. Learn to cherish those beside you with loving speech. Then, every word we speak will be like a warm spring breeze, like the morning bird song, making people's hearts more peaceful. And we will understand that when the mind overthinks less, life will be peaceful and joyful. Happiness does not come from anything distant, but from gentle, loving words uttered from a heart that cherishes karmic connections. Dear friend, on the journey to finding peace and happiness, perhaps nothing is more important than knowing how to manage our own emotions. People often suffer not just because of circumstances, but also because they cannot control the waves of emotion in their minds. We are easily swept away by anger, selfishness, and comparison, and then let those waves drown our inner peace. Many people, when faced with something disagreeable, often cannot restrain themselves and react immediately with words or actions. And it is in those very moments that seeds of suffering are sown, leading to persistent regret afterward. The Buddha once taught that when a thought of anger arises, 100 gates of karmic obstacles open, meaning even a little anger is enough to bring countless negative consequences into life. Have you noticed that when we are angry, both body and mind are in disarray? Our heart beats faster, breath becomes shallow, words turn heavy, facial expressions change, and wisdom seems obscured. Sometimes, just one uncontrolled word can crack a relationship that we have cherished for a long time. However, a truly mature person is not someone who never gets angry, but someone who knows how to keep a calm mind amidst the storm, knowing how to restrain oneself so that emotions don't overwhelm reason. A little patience, a little compassion, is the shield that protects us from life's storms. In everyday life, perhaps each of us has witnessed elderly people in our villages or neighborhoods. Even when insulted, even when hearing unpleasant words, they still just smile, remain silent, and do not let their hearts be disturbed. Outsiders looking in might think they are weak, but in reality, that is strength. Because only truly strong people can restrain themselves when the ego is burning to speak out. There is a saying that a wise person is not someone who always wins an argument, but someone who knows when to be silent to maintain harmony. That is wisdom in managing emotions. one of the most beautiful lessons about letting go of negative emotions. Perhaps you have heard the story of the glass of water. One day, a teacher held a glass of water in his hand and asked his students, "How heavy do you think this glass of water is?" The students each gave a different number. Some said light, others said heavy. The teacher just smiled and said, "What's important isn't how heavy the glass of water is, but how long you hold it. If you hold it for just a moment, it's nothing. But if you hold it for many hours, your arm will get tired. If you hold it all day, your arm will become numb." Negative emotions are the same. The longer you hold on to them, the more tired and distressed you become. The best way is to put the glass of water down, just as you let go of emotions, to allow your mind to be light. The story is simple, yet contains a profound truth. Often, when angry, we tend to cling to it, hold on to it as a way to assert ourselves. However, anger never hurts others as much as it hurts us. Clinging tightly to anger only makes our hearts heavier. Only by letting go can we truly be free. Letting go here doesn't mean being weak or overlooking wrongdoings, but not letting our minds be consumed by resentment. When our minds are clear, when wisdom illuminates, we will know how to handle everything with calmness and understanding, without regret. Once I was chatting with a farmer in the countryside. He said that in farming life, there were many times when neighbors encroached on a bit of land or disputed irrigation water, making it easy to get angry. But then, after much thought, he told himself, the land is still there, the water is still there, but neighborly affection, if lost, is hard to regain. So he chose to remain silent and yield a little. And the next day, the other person felt uneasy and came to apologize on their own. Thanks to this, both sides maintained harmony. Hearing him, I suddenly remembered the Buddha's teaching. A little patience leads to a quiet life. A step back reveals a wide sea and vast sky. It's truly true that patience, sometimes, is wisdom. Practitioners and lay people alike need to learn that lesson. It's not only when sitting in meditation that one needs to maintain a peaceful mind, but in every daily interaction. That's when the challenge lies. Try to imagine. Every time you get angry, you have given others the power to control your mind. A single word can make you lose sleep all night. A glance can make your heart waver all day. Isn't that letting others hold our happiness in their hands? A free person is someone who knows how to return to themselves, recognize emotions, smile at them, and let them drift away like clouds in the sky. Life is inherently impermanent. Everything will pass. Today we are angry. Tomorrow is different. Looking back, there are things we reacted too strongly to, things that weren't even worth it. If at that moment we had known to stop, taken a deep breath, and let go of our ego, perhaps we would not have hurt others, nor ourselves. Managing emotions is not about suppressing them, but about cultivating mindfulness to understand and transform them. When angry, know you are angry. When sad, know you are sad, but do not let it control you. Look at nature and learn. A heavy rain will eventually stop. A gloomy sky will become clear again. A river sometimes flows swiftly, but also has tranquil sections. The human mind is similar. There are active phases, but there will also be quiet times. The important thing is to know how to return to our breath, to listen, to put the glass of water down, and naturally, our hearts will feel lighter. One who knows contentment doesn't worry much. One who knows how to let go doesn't suffer long. So, my friend, if today you are carrying annoyance, resentment, or unresolved sadness in your heart, remember that you don't have to bear it all. Try putting the glass of water down. Give yourself space to breathe, a moment of stillness to feel life flowing. You will realize that the awareness of peace is inherently within you. As long as you stop clinging to what makes you heavy, life will become much easier to breathe when we know how to shed emotional burdens. Maintaining a peaceful mind is keeping a clear sky for your life. When you can let go of anger, your heart will have space for love to blossom. When you know how to restrain yourself, you will protect precious relationships. And when you live mindfully, you will find happiness not from anything distant, but right in every ordinary moment of life. You can try right now. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and exhale slowly. Let your mind settle like a still lake. Imagine you are putting down the glass of water you've held for too long, allowing your hands and heart to rest. In that stillness, you will hear the call of peace, and then you will see that life doesn't need too much calculation or comparison. Just knowing contentment and knowing how to let go means happiness is already by your side. So the lesson from managing emotions is not just about restraint to avoid hurting others, but also about allowing ourselves to live a lighter, freer life. A person who can master their emotions is a person who can master their own happiness. And from that inner peace, they can spread the light of love to everyone around them. Dear friend, let your mind be like clouds drifting across the sky, like the wind sweeping through fields, unburdened, unattached. Because when the mind is at peace, life is at peace, and happiness will naturally blossom like flowers in the early morning sun. Dear friend, have you ever asked yourself why, even with many things in your possession, you still feel it's not enough? Still feel uneasy? Still feel an emptiness in your heart? Some people have grand houses, beautiful cars, and bulging bank accounts, yet every night they sigh and lie awake with countless calculations. Others live in small, dilapidated, tiled houses, with only rice and vegetables to get by, yet they smile gently, sleep soundly, and wake up early to the sound of birds, feeling peace in life. Where does the difference lie? Not in the amount of possessions one holds, but in one knowing contentment, while the other keeps chasing what is not yet enough. The ancients had a saying, "Tri tuk thuong lak." Knowing contentment brings lasting joy, meaning one who knows enough is always happy. Therefore, contentment is the key that opens the door to happiness. In life, greed is often the fire that burns away peace. A greedy person has many worries. Acquiring one item makes them want another. Having one house makes them want a bigger one. Having one car makes them want a more luxurious one. And so, life keeps chasing what is never enough. The Buddha taught that greed is one of the 3 roots of suffering, along with hatred and delusion. The greedier a person is, the more restless their mind becomes. Like someone drinking salt water, the more they drink, the thirstier they become. Conversely, one who knows contentment always feels wealthy, because they appreciate every small thing that is present. Try looking back at yourself. Haven't you often thought that if you had a little more money, a little more fame, a little more power, you would be happier? But then, upon achieving it, you still found it wasn't enough and wanted even more. In reality, the lack is not in the external world, but right in the heart. If the mind does not know contentment, even if the whole world were offered to you, you would still not be satisfied. But when the mind knows contentment, even a simple meal with vegetables is already complete. Happiness is actually very simple. Having a roof over your head, food and clothes, loved ones by your side, and health to live each day. Yet we often forget these things, taking them for granted. And then we endlessly compare ourselves to others. Bigger house, nicer car, more luxurious clothes, more money. Such comparisons only make the heart more restless. If you can sit in an afternoon garden, watch a flower bloom, hear the wind rustle through the leaves, drink a cool sip of water, and feel warmth in your heart, then you have already touched the source of happiness. I remember an ancient story that one day a king, passing by the city gate, saw a beggar sitting against a tree trunk. The strange thing was that although the beggar's clothes were tattered and he had nothing in his hands, a serene smile was clearly visible on his face. The king, finding this strange, immediately approached and asked, "You have no home, no money, no possessions. How can you smile so happily?" The beggar looked at the king and slowly replied, "Your Majesty, this morning I had food. This afternoon I had a place to sit out of the sun. And this evening I heard the cool breeze whisper past my ears. That is enough for a lifetime." The king was suddenly speechless upon hearing this. The most powerful man in the country felt a lack, while the poor man felt content. True happiness lies not in having much, but in knowing when to stop and finding contentment. That story is simple, yet makes us reflect deeply. Sometimes we think that only wealth brings peace and joy, but in reality, there are joys that money cannot buy. The joy of living a full day, of being healthy, of sitting beside loved ones, of hearing birds sing, children play, of breathing fresh air. All are miracles. Only when we know how to stop and feel do we see how rich this life truly is. Once, I visited a farmer in my hometown who was over 60 years old. He lived in a small house with nothing considered abundant. But when I asked him if he felt suffering, he just smiled gently and said, "Every day I get to wake up, go to the fields to tend my rice, come home in the evening to a meal of rice and vegetable soup. And at night, I fall asleep, listening to crickets chirp. That's already joyful. What more could I possibly wish for?" Hearing those words, my heart settled. It turns out happiness is not found far away. It is right in everyday life, in each person's contentment. If the mind does not know contentment, even living in a golden palace, one will feel a lack. But when the mind knows contentment, even a thatched house feels warm. Contentment is not about abandoning the desire to strive, but about not letting one's heart be enslaved by greed. Working, earning money, building a career, all are necessary. But consider them means to live, not burdens that make you lose sleep and appetite. Houses, cars, money are merely tools, not measures of happiness. Try to imagine a person who constantly worries day and night about keeping possessions, fearing loss, fearing being disadvantaged, fearing others being better than them. The more they hold, the more they worry. The more they have, the more they fear losing it. Thus, the more wealth, the more restless the mind becomes. But a person who knows contentment uses what they have, lets go of the rest, and does not crave more, can live leisurely, sleep soundly, and smile gently every day. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha once taught, one who knows contentment finds peace, even lying on the ground. One who does not know contentment is still dissatisfied, even in heaven. That teaching is simple, yet profound. It reminds us that true happiness begins within the mind, not from external things. Just a bowl of rice, a cup of soup, a roof over your head, and a grateful heart. That is already wealth. Dear friend, if today you are feeling tired because you haven't achieved what you desire, try to pause and see what you already have. Perhaps you are forgetting that you still have eyes to see, ears to hear, legs to walk, a home to return to. So many people out there are still lacking those very ordinary things. If you appreciate what you have, you will see that you are not poor at all. Let your heart be like a field after rain, no longer thirsty, no longer wishing for more, but full of life. Cultivate the habit of pausing each day to be grateful and feel content. When drinking a glass of water, feel its refreshing coolness. When eating a meal, be grateful for every grain of rice. When taking a deep breath, feel the miracle that you are still alive. That is the magic of contentment. So, my friend, happiness is not in having much, but in knowing contentment. One who knows contentment doesn't worry about comparisons, nor is bothered by gains and losses, because every day is a gift to them. One who does not know contentment lives forever in exhaustion, chasing after things that are not truly needed. The path to happiness is sometimes encapsulated in just 2 words: knowing contentment. When the sun sets behind the bamboo grove, when the temple bell echoes in the late afternoon, if you can smile and feel peace in your heart, then you have already touched true happiness. Remember that life is impermanent. Wealth and fame will also dissipate. Only a contented mind will lead you to lasting peace. Dear friend, practice living simply. Practice appreciating every present moment. Let your mind be like a cool stream, gently flowing past worries. Unburdened, without craving. When you know contentment, you will see that the entire universe is smiling with you. And in that smile, you will find an unshakable happiness. There are days when you sit alone in a quiet room, suddenly thinking about how many things have passed in life, from the joys and sorrows of childhood, the stumbles of youth, to dreams that remain unfulfilled. Looking back, everything seems like just a passing breeze, like a flower petal falling onto water. Beautiful, but quickly fading. That is the impermanent nature of life that we sometimes forget. Many of us often suffer, not because the present is too harsh, but because we cling to too many things that we imagine will last forever. We cling tightly to fame and fortune, value status, chase after money, unaware that all of it is merely like bubbles on the surface of a lake, shimmering in the sunlight, but quickly dissipating. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a reminder that all compounded phenomena are impermanent, like a dream, an illusion, a bubble, a flash of lightning. If we understand that, our hearts will feel so much lighter. I remember a story that many people have witnessed in life. Once, a group of people attending a funeral passed by a crematorium. As the coffin went in, after a while of fiercely burning red flames, all that remained was a small handful of ashes. Loved ones wept, friends grieved. All the fame, wealth, and things that once caused that person suffering or happiness, in the end, were just a bit of what to return to the earth and sky. Standing before that scene, everyone suddenly awoke, realizing that they were alive, yet still endlessly chasing illusory things. So, what truly is worth keeping in life? A king in ancient times also experienced such restlessness. Although he lived in a golden palace, possessed all power and the respect of the world, his heart remained unsettled. He feared losing power. He was uneasy when he encountered failure, and tormented when facing suffering. He sought out a wise sage for advice. The master did not offer a long explanation, but simply gave the king a small silver ring with 3 words engraved on it. "This, too, shall pass." From then on, whenever he felt sad, worried, or even joyful and proud, he would look at the ring and read those words. Strangely, his mind felt lighter because he realized that nothing lasts forever. Suffering will pass, joy will pass, power will pass. So why cling so fiercely, exhausting one's soul? If a farmer in the field loses his harvest, he is sad. But the next season, with favorable rain and wind, he harvests abundantly. If a worker loses her job, she is worried, but after a while, she finds a new one. All these changes are proof of impermanence. Just as the sky has rain at times, sun at others, sometimes cool breezes, sometimes storms, but nothing stays in one place forever. Recognizing this, we will learn to be more calm amidst life's ups and downs. In fact, what makes us suffer the most is not the circumstances, but how we cling to our emotions. When we stubbornly hold on to anger and sadness, it's like continuously holding a heavy glass of water. At first it's fine, but hold it long enough, and your arm will tire, your mind will grow weary. If we know how to put the glass of water down, our soul will lighten. Similarly, if we know how to let go of negative emotions, understanding that they are also temporary and will pass, then our hearts will be at peace. In a moment of stillness, try listening to the wind blowing through the trees. Try looking at the golden sunlight stretching across the ripe rice fields. You will see that everything is constantly changing. This morning, there was still a crystal clear dewdrop on a leaf. By noon, the sun had made it evaporate. Today, a bird sings on a branch. Tomorrow, it might fly far away. So why do we force a life to stand still when its very nature is constant movement and transformation? Amidst that impermanence, the only thing we can do is live fully in the present. When happy, truly be happy. When sad, let the sadness pass without clinging to it. When a loved one is by your side, cherish every moment, because you don't know what tomorrow will bring. When sitting alone, enjoy the stillness, for that is also a precious gift. Impermanence is not meant to make us pessimistic, but to awaken us. It reminds us that all suffering will eventually end, just as any rain will stop and the sky will become clear again. It also reminds us that happiness cannot be postponed for the future, but can only be lived in this very moment. If today you can still smile, still walk, still hold a loved one's hand, then that is invaluable happiness. There's an interesting thing. When we truly understand impermanence, we will no longer be overly greedy, no longer contend to the bitter end. Because we know that everything will change, we cherish what we have, love those beside us more, and live a peaceful life. The Buddha once taught, "Live as if today is your last day," not to instill fear, but to know how to appreciate every breath, every moment. Because within each breath, the miraculousness of life is contained. And then, deep down, we realize that peace does not lie out there, not in money or fame, but in the very mindfulness within our own minds. When the mind is at peace, all circumstances become light. When the mind is agitated, even standing amidst fragrant flowers and exotic grasses, no joy is found. Peace is not something granted from outside, but a choice, a way of living, a state of inner being. As long as we turn inward, know how to appreciate the present, know how to smile at changes, then happiness will be present. So if one day you feel restless, remember the ring engraved with 3 words, "This too shall pass." Read it very slowly and let the words sink into your heart. All pain will pass. All joy will pass. Only a peaceful mind remains. Only love remains eternally deep in the memory of this karmic connection. When we understand impermanence, we no longer fear loss, nor do we crave excessively. We simply live fully in the present moment, like a flower that blooms completely, then fades, like a raindrop falling to the earth to nourish life. And it is in that mindfulness that we find a deep, gentle happiness that nothing can disturb. Impermanence teaches us to let go, but also teaches us to love. Because we know life is short, we cherish those walking beside us even more. Because we know nothing lasts forever, we want to live more kindly each day. That is the greatest gift that impermanence bestows, if we know how to open our hearts to receive it. And then, in the stillness of the mind, you will realize a simple truth. Happiness is not far away. It is right here in this breath, in this step, in every moment that you are still mindful enough to live. In modern life, sometimes you feel like you're caught in a whirlwind, with no stopping point. Work piles up, messages flood in, appointments follow one another. Then there's the pressure of money, housing, cars, comparison, and the desire for even more. Every morning when we wake up, we often hastily look at our phones instead of looking up to see the blue sky. When eating, we no longer fully savor the taste of a dish because our minds are constantly thinking about what's next. Have you ever found yourself having traveled a long distance but not remembering the scenery along the way, simply because your mind was always racing ahead? That is how the hurried pace of life has taken away the inherent peaceful moments of human life. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a teaching that if our minds wander to the future, we will lose the present. If our minds cling tightly to the past, we will never find peace. Life is inherently short, but we often let it pass in a hurry, as if the faster we go, the more we achieve. But in reality, what we lose is life itself in every moment. Slow living is not about stopping completely, nor does it mean abandoning all dreams or plans. Slow living is simply knowing how to pause a bit, breathe a bit, and feel the presence of oneself and everything around us, It is then that we truly see the real value of life. There is a very familiar and simple story. One day, a visitor came to see the master. The visitor hastily poured tea, raised the cup, and drank it immediately. The tea was still hot, making his tongue sting. The master saw this, smiled gently, and said, "Good tea must be sipped slowly to savor its flavor. Life is similar. If you only rush, you will only receive the burning sensation and never know the sweet flavor hidden within." The story seems simple, but contains a great lesson. We are often like that visitor, always rushing to experience, to achieve, but overlooking the true flavor of life. When we know how to slow down, we realize that life, like a cup of tea, has a bitter and astringent taste, but then comes a pure, sweet aftertaste. In a peaceful village, there was a simple farmer. Every morning, he leisurely led his buffalo to the field. He didn't rush or toil with his head down like others, but often paused to breathe in the scent of fresh grass, to watch birds hopping between branches, to listen to the wind rustling through the leaves. His life was not wealthy or abundant, but in his eyes, there was always a light-hearted ease. People asked him what his secret to a peaceful life was. He just smiled and said, "Every day, I just need to see the sunrise, work with my hands, eat a meal with my family. That's enough. What is there to rush for?" That farmer didn't study many philosophies, yet he lived in true spiritual spirit. It was precisely that unhurried ease that helped him maintain peace in his soul. The pace of modern life makes many people forget that the heart also needs moments of stillness to recover. Like a lake, when constantly stirred, it becomes murky. But when left undisturbed, the surface of the water becomes clear again, reflecting the sky and clouds. Our minds are similar. If constantly swept along by striving, competition, and ceaselessly rushing forward, the mind becomes more and more chaotic, losing its clarity. Only when we know how to stop, how to listen to our own breath, do we realize that our hearts can also become still and clear-sighted. Many people believe that happiness only exists in the future, when they have enough money, status, and fame. But the Buddha taught that happiness is not found in any distant place, but right in the present moment. When you sit with a warm cup of tea in the morning, if your mind is at peace, that is already happiness. When you listen to children's laughter, see the sunset descending behind a rooftop, that moment is an invaluable gift. Slow living is allowing ourselves to recognize these simple gifts. If we keep chasing after fleeting external things, we will miss the true joy that has always been present around us. A Zen master once said, "Walk slowly to see each step. Eat slowly to taste the sweetness in each grain of rice. Breathe slowly to feel life overflowing in each breath." That is not theoretical advice, but a method of healing the soul. Because when we live slowly, we are no longer swept away by worry and fear. Our minds become open, and naturally, everything seems lighter. Like when looking at a flower, instead of hastily taking a picture and leaving immediately. We stop to admire the flower, seeing each delicate petal tremble in the wind, hearing bees buzzing around. It is precisely these seemingly small moments that nourish our souls. If you are feeling tired, try to slow down for once. No need to go anywhere far. Just sit down, close your eyes, take a deep breath, feel the air entering, then gently exhale. Listen to your heart beating. Feel your hands and feet still present. Naturally, you will feel a warmth, a sense of safety overflowing in your heart. That is life itself, something that sometimes, due to our haste, we have forgotten. The world is inherently impermanent. Everything changes daily. We can hold many things in our hands, but then we will also lose them. Perhaps today you are young, healthy, and full of dreams, but one day, all of it will pass like flowing water. Slow living is a way for us to appreciate every day, every hour we have, so we don't have regrets when looking back. Because happiness is not about rushing to the finish line, but about knowing how to smile along every step of the way, just like the story of the visitor drinking hot tea. If you rush, you'll only get the stinging sensation. But if you leisurely sip each small mouthful, you will feel the tea's flavor spread, both astringent and sweet, both warm and fragrant. Life is similar. If we know how to be at ease, how to keep a quiet space for ourselves, we will see that life, though short, is profoundly deep. The lesson of that teacup is a reminder that true happiness comes only when we know how to live slowly, how to fully enjoy each simple moment. So, amidst the hurried pace of life, give your soul a place to rest. Don't worry too much about tomorrow, nor regret yesterday too much. Sit down, listen to the birds sing, watch the clouds drift. Enjoy a simple meal full of love. Then you will realize that peace is not in some distant place, but right in the heart that has learned to live slowly and be grateful. There are times in life when we realize that so much suffering actually comes not from circumstances, but from our own clinging. We cling endlessly to a hurtful word, to an event that is past, to a resentment or an incomplete love, and as a result, our hearts are heavy, and our minds are never at peace. We keep thinking that if we hold on tight, we will find justice, find an onward, or at least a little peace. But in reality, it's precisely because we don't let go that the pain grows, like someone holding a burning log, hoping to keep it for warmth, but forgetting that their hand is burning every hour. Therefore, letting go is not a loss. It is liberation. In Buddhist scriptures, there is a teaching that if a person is shed by an arrow, the immediate thing to do is to pull the arrow out, not to sit and ponder who shot it, from where, or with what kind of bow. Our lives are similar. Some things have happened that we cannot change, nor can we turn back time. But we keep digging, keep wanting to know the reason, keep wanting to cling, and in doing so, we hurt ourselves even more. Learning to let go means we pull the arrow out of our hearts, allowing the wound a chance to heal. And only when the heart heals can happiness enter. There is a very familiar story in Zen monasteries that each time it is told makes us pause to reflect. Two monks were crossing a river and encountered a young woman who was afraid to wade through the swift current. One monk then carried her to the other side and set her down. The girl stood in thanks and then walked away quickly. For a long way afterwards, the other monk appeared annoyed and frustrated. Finally, He couldn't hold back any longer and said, "Why did you do that, brother? We are renunciants. How can we touch a woman?" The monk who carried the girl smiled calmly. "Brother, I put her down on the other side of the river a long time ago. Why are you still carrying her in your heart?" That answer startles us. In reality, how many times in life are we like that monk? The event is over, and the person has gone, but we still carry the burden in our minds, bringing along irritation and anger, only to suffer ourselves. If we could put it down, our minds would be light as clouds, free as a passing breeze. Letting go is not for others' benefit, but precisely for us to find peace for ourselves. Some might ask, but how can one let go when the wound is too deep, when the memories are too clear? In reality, letting go doesn't mean forgetting or denying. Letting go is simply accepting that what has passed cannot be changed, and we do not allow it to continue to bind our minds. Like a flowing river, water that has passed this section will never return, but it still contributes to forming the vast ocean. Memories are similar. They have passed, but they have made us who we are today. We are grateful for it, then smile and move on. In a village, there was a poor farmer who toiled in the fields his whole life. One year, he lost his harvest due to drought. All his savings were gone. For months, he just sat sighing, blaming himself, blaming heaven and earth. Loved ones came to console him, but it was useless. Then, one day, he saw his young grandchild happily playing with some pebbles. He suddenly thought, the child doesn't need a harvest, doesn't need money, yet they can still smile. He realized that what made him suffer was not the lost harvest, but his clinging to that loss in his heart. When he decided to get up, sow seeds again, and tend to each plot, he felt lighter in his heart. He understood that the old season had passed, but a new one was coming. From then on, he learned to let go of what was lost to live with what remained. In the light of the Buddha's teachings, letting go is not escaping. On the contrary, letting go is an act of courage. The courage to face the truth that everything in this world is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever, from joy to sorrow, from meeting to parting. When we accept that truth of impermanence, we can smile and let go. Clinging too tightly, we suffer. Letting go, we find peace. Imagine a hand tightly grasping sand. The tighter you clench, the more sand slips through your fingers. But when you open your hand, you can feel the softness of each grain of sand. Play with it, and know that it never truly belonged to you. Life is similar. The more we try to hold on, the more we lose. But when we know how to let go, we see that everything is a gift of karmic connection. In daily life, everyone has things they need to learn to put down. Some cling stubbornly to the pain of a broken relationship, then dare not love again. Some harbor resentment towards a loved one, leading to family rifts. Some cling to the fear of losing money, losing fame, and thus never feel content. But if we can tell ourselves that what's past is past, and put it down, our hearts will lighten immensely. Because letting go doesn't mean we no longer care, but that we no longer let it control our minds. A master once taught that when your hands are full, to receive more fragrant flowers, you must put down some of the bricks and stones. The mind is similar, If it is too cluttered with resentment and worries, how can happiness find space to enter? Those words are so true. We long for peace, yet our minds are filled with anger. How can peace exist? We pray for love, yet our hearts are heavy with envy. How can love arise? Only when we let go does the mind open to receive beautiful things. Standing in a field on an afternoon, watching the sun slowly disappear behind the mountain range, we realize that everything in life has its time. The sun is sometimes brilliant, but also sets. Flowers bloom, then also fade. Everyone's life has losses, but also new beginnings. Letting go means accepting that movement so we are not swept into suffering, but are at ease amidst impermanence. Therefore, letting go is the key that opens the door to liberation. Liberation from hatred, from worries, from the burdens we impose on ourselves. Liberation, so our minds are vast like the sky, peaceful like a still lake, and from that, happiness naturally arises. And whenever you find it hard to let go, remember the words of that monk. I put her down on the other side of the river a long time ago. Why are you still carrying her in your heart? That is a reminder that everything can be put down if we truly wish to. In the end, human life is just a journey. The things we cling to today, when we close our eyes and pass on, we cannot take anything with us. So why don't we learn to let go right now, so that every day we are still alive is a day of lightness and freedom. Letting go is not losing, but gaining peace, gaining serenity, gaining oneself. And in that letting go, we find the key to liberation, opening the door to true peace and happiness. In modern life, many people are constantly engrossed in seeking joy in grand things, resounding successes, and glamorous relationships. But that very engrossment exhausts our hearts, so that when we sit down, we feel an emptiness in our souls that has never been filled. Have you ever asked yourself where true happiness lies, and whether we need to run too far to find it? In reality, happiness is very close. It is present in the small things we sometimes inadvertently overlook. A given smile, a kind inquiry, an affectionate gaze, a warm handshake, all can become seeds of peace if we know how to sow them at the right time and place. The Buddha once taught that within every human being, wholesome seeds are already present. We only need to water them with faith, gratitude, and compassion, and those seeds will sprout and yield sweet fruits. Happiness does not need to be sought far away. It is cultivated and nourished by us in every day of our lives. However, amidst the hurried pace of life, we often forget this, causing the wholesome seeds to dry up and be forgotten in the soil of our souls. Try to imagine an early morning. In the field, the gentle sunlight has just risen, and dewdrops, sparkling like jade, still rest on the leaves. The farmer goes to the field, holding 5 seeds in his hand, walking leisurely across his plot of land. He sows each small seed into the earth, without haste, without worry. He trusts that heaven and earth will do the rest. The earth will embrace, water will nourish, light will guide, until the green shoots emerge. Human life is similar. Every smile, every kind word, every loving action we give is a seed. Perhaps today we don't see flowers blooming. But with patience and trust, one day the garden of our soul will be filled with fragrance and color. The Sutra of Responsive Buddhist Teachings recalls a simple yet profound story called The Seed in the Heart. There was a little girl who every day took a handful of seeds to the yard to sow. Her mother asked many times, "What seeds are you sowing, dear? Why isn't anything growing?" The little girl just smiled sweetly and replied, "I am sowing seeds of hope. And one day, they will bloom into a beautiful flower garden." Day after day, even without seeing green shoots, the little girl's eyes were always radiant, because her heart was full of faith and joy. In reality, happiness doesn't wait for flowers to bloom. It's already present in the moment. She smiles in every seed sown with all her innocence and love. That story is like a reminder for all of us. Many times in life, we offer a kind word or show concern, but don't see an immediate response. We quickly become sad, disappointed. Some even close their hearts. But please believe that no wholesome seed, once sown, is ever lost. It may lie dormant for a long time, but one day, when the karmic conditions ripen, it will sprout and return sweet fruit to us. Perhaps people will unexpectedly remember a gentle gesture we offered, a warm word we once shared, and that very thing helped them stand more firmly during stormy days. The Buddha once taught, "As you sow, so shall you reap." But hear that seeds are not just external actions, but also internal intentions. A gentle thought, a grateful heart, are also seeds. And conversely, each time we harbor anger, jealousy, or suspicion, we are sowing seeds of suffering in the soil of our souls. Therefore, if we want peace and joy, we need to know how to tend the garden of our minds, choosing what kind of seeds to sow. Instead of blame or anger, we can sow forgiveness. Instead of comparing or envying, we can sow contentment and joy for others. A garden sown with many wholesome seeds will become lush and fertile. A garden sown with many unwholesome seeds will be full of weeds and gloom. Once a master said that whenever we genuinely smile at someone, that smile not only soothes their soul, but also returns to nourish us. A smile is a gift that costs nothing, yet has the power to transform a dull day into a joyful one. Similarly, when we listen to someone with all our heart, we are sowing a seed of understanding. The person being listened to will feel acknowledged and protected, and from that, their heart will soften. It is in these seemingly small moments that happiness quietly blossoms. Perhaps you are experiencing tiring days, your mind heavy with worries. Perhaps you feel life is too unfair and lonely. But please don't forget that you can still sow tiny seeds in every moment. Try starting with a word of thanks. Thank the morning sun filtering through the window. Thank the cool, refreshing glass of water you just drank. Thank the person who smiled at you on the street. Each word of thanks is a seed of gratitude, and gratitude is the foundation of happiness. A grateful person is never poor in spirit because they always see abundance in every moment of life. One afternoon, a worker returned home after a hard day's labor. In his hand was a simple lunchbox prepared by his wife. He sat down on the threshold, opened the lunchbox. In the late afternoon sun, he smiled and whispered thanks to life, to his wife, to himself? It may have been just a simple meal, but in that moment, happiness overflowed. It was gratitude that transformed an ordinary moment into a sacred one. That is proof that sowing seeds of peace is not something distant, but begins with the simplest and most familiar things. You can offer your concern to a sad loved one. You can give a sincere compliment to a colleague. You can offer silent listening to someone who needs to share. Each of these gifts is a seed sown, and they will sprout in the hearts of the recipients. Even if you don't see immediate results, know that one day those very seeds will return to help you stand more firmly in life. There is a profound philosophy that when we sow seeds of peace and joy, we are not only sowing for others, but also for ourselves. Because happiness is never a one-way street. When we smile, our heart also smiles. When we are grateful, our soul is also being nourished. When we forgive, we ourselves are freed first. Therefore, every seed of peace sown is a dual gift, given to others and returned to us. If at any time you feel tired, please try sitting down, closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, and asking your heart, "Have I sown any seeds today?" That question is not to blame, but to remind us to return to ourselves. Don't wait for grand things. Just a small gesture, and you have sown a seed. And if you sow just one seed every day, that's enough to accumulate into a magnificent garden. Human life is inherently impermanent. No one knows what tomorrow will bring. That's why it's even more important to live fully for today, to sow what is wholesome right in the present. Don't wait. Don't